Welcome to the Channel Champions podcast, powered by Evolve IP, hosted by Zach Anderson. Today, we'll explore the always evolving landscape of the IT, telephony, and communications channel. If you are a trusted advisor, strategist, IT consultant, or sales engineer, this one's for you. Today's guest is...
Okay. Happy Thursday. This is the Channel Champions podcast, episode 6. I have some amazing guests with me today. Gentlemen, I don't want to steal your thunder. Whoever wants to start first, please introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Wong with Arkitech Group. Been in the industry for approximately about 5 years. And prior to that, I was on the customer side for 25 years, running IT operations for several companies at Bay Area. My last stint was over at Roblox and then ZellePay. So have a lot of experience from the customer side and been excited to be on the channel side now.
I'm Josh Mitchell with Arkitech Group, and I'm 6 months shy of my 20-year anniversary of being an agent. Started in January of 2004. So, yeah, long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, happy almost anniversary. One thing that I always like to ask is how you came up with the name of your business.
That's a great question. We started, Josh and I were partners. We worked before Arkitech Group at another agency and built a great partnership. So, when we decided to branch off, that's probably one of the hardest thing to do because, it's first you got to find a domain name that's available, right? and none of them are. Me coming from the customer side, we're always thinking about strategy, design. And so, thought about, part of our role here is to help customers architect a solution.
Got it.
And if we spelled it, the traditional way, those domains are all taken up. So that's where the
Sure.
K came in with architect. And then it just went, grew from there.
Nice. So when you formed the company, did you have an idea of certain types of solutions that you wanted to offer to your clients, or was there specific verticals that you were both wanting to focus on, or what was your initial go-to-market strategy?
For the go-to-market and the area that I was comfortable working in was really infrastructure-based. Okay. Whether it's cloud, on-premise data center, just managed services around supporting customers' current infrastructure environment or helping them migrate from on-premise to a hybrid or cloud solution. And then within that, Zach, it's pretty broad. So within that, there's a lot of areas around it that we like to encompass into this solution. It's, we started talking about DR, backup as a service. And then obviously the foundation of it all is the connectivity piece, right? The network, how they all get pieced together globally or domestically. We started talking about SD-WAN solutions and building private networks and connectivity into the cloud. So those are really the big areas. And then, we, bundle into, voice and contact center solutions as well.
Mm-hmm. So you already knew what you wanted to, or you already had the framework when you guys started Arkitech, pun intended, of what you wanted to do. I take it.
Yes.
Excellent. As far as verticals, are there specific verticals that you focus in today that are maybe different from when you started, or kind of anything and everything?
I would say we're not vertical focused. I mean, I kind of like to use the analogy of we're like the plumbing or the electricity of a building. So every company has to have the services that we represent, network, infrastructure. You can't have a company without a network and a computer infrastructure. So, it's the last thing you would have to turn down if you were shutting down a business. So, it isn't vertical specific. I would say, education and government are typically specific areas, and some people kind of get really ingrained in supporting that space. So I'd say that's the only vertical that we don't work in. But other than that, it's really broad. Being here in the Bay Area, we tend to service a lot of technology focused companies because this is where they are. But it does range across all kind of customer verticals. Nice.
So, man, you've been on the agent side now for, you said 5 years?
Yeah. It's been, I think 5 years now. And then, we had Arkitech for a little bit over 2 years.
Okay. And then Josh, you've been on the agent side, basically your whole career in the channel. Is that right?
Yes. I was never, I didn't make the traditional, evolution from working on the carrier side and then coming over to being an agent. So I'm kind of a rare anomaly in that sense.
So how did you both actually meet each other?
Through a mutual, somebody that I'd worked with before. And then I think Man was his customer. And then when Man was deciding that he didn't maybe want to continue down his same career path that he'd been on, our mutual acquaintance thought Man, should consider coming on this side. So we met through a mutual acquaintance and really just kind of, in the beginning, Man was leaning on me a lot for just kind of really understanding this world and how to navigate through the supplier landscape and, what's the best way to support clients and so forth. So in the beginning, it was me kind of coaching him a little bit in terms of, the best way to succeed in this space. And I was obviously very glad to lean on his technical expertise and his customer centric view of us, right? He's worked with us from the customer side. So I think our skill sets complemented each other pretty well.
That's great. So, Man, I got to know what made you want to go over to, I hesitate to call it the dark side, but
no, that's what I call it. So it's, a couple of things. One is I've always had this entrepreneur mindset. I've always wanted to, veer off on my own and do something on my own and start a business. Of course, it's when you work in the corporate life, you kind of get, you get so into it, you're moving up in the corporation and then it just gets harder and harder to step out of it. Finally I came to a point where I knew, I had to either do it now or I would continue to work corporate until I retire. So at that point, I just made a cognitive decision to just take the leap, leave corporate and had a conversation with my wife and mentors of mine. And, one of the best advice that was given to me from my previous mentor and boss was, the best bet is to bet on yourself. So I did, and I made that leap of faith and never looked back. I love what I'm doing, and I've been fortunate to have great mentors like Josh, who was very helpful at the beginning, the first couple of years, to just have someone to call, and I call Josh all the time, getting advice and getting introduced to the business and to the partners and the channel side of things. So it's been amazing.
That's great. So as far as like the last 5 years that you've been in the channel, Man, I guess for both of you, there a lot of things have happened in the last 5 years, obviously.
Yeah.
So, but being new to the channel or the agent side, I guess, Man, what's that been like for you? Like, what's the experience been like? How much has it differed from the carrier side of things for you?
Well, for me, I didn't know any better, right? Coming from someone that ran IT operations and was always on the customer side. But, through the 5 years, I have seen a lot of changes, a lot of consolidations, and there's a lot more suppliers coming into the ecosystem where we can offer these solutions to our customers. So, which is great. We're constantly seeing the channel evolve and having different type of solutions where we can bring to bear to our customers. Mm-hmm. And that's really great for, the agency and the business that what we do.
It validates what we're doing because, instead of this agent world shrinking, it's doing the opposite. It's growing tremendously. And so more and more companies, I think, are understanding the value we bring, as well as, the value it brings to them to have knowledgeable, technical sales folks that are bringing them, opportunities that really fit into the sweet spot of their offerings. Mm-hmm. So I've always told customers that it's this model really is a win-win-win, meaning I believe the customer definitely benefits from having us involved. I believe the carriers write better deals with us involved, meaning hopefully if everyone's doing their job right, we're bringing them deals that, again, are just right in their wheelhouse where, that their offering is very specific and set up to successfully deliver the types of opportunities that we're bringing to them. And from the customer side, it's shortening that buy process and helping them weed through really a lot of different kind of sales noise or maybe confusion where, there's truly a lot of choice in the marketplace. So how do I really understand what the right fit is and solution? Hopefully that's, part of the value that we're bringing to them. So I think they win. I think they win from a post-sale perspective where, if and when something does need to be addressed, I pick on the larger suppliers sometimes, but if you're billing $5,000 a month with Verizon or Comcast or AT&T, you're one of potentially millions of customers that have a spend of that level. And so you don't necessarily always get the attention to something that might be of massive importance to you and your business, but to some of those bigger suppliers, they simply just aren't set up to deliver the level of customer support that everyone might need. Mm-hmm. So I think customers that wrote that business through us would have a better chance at getting resolution to something that's important to their business. So it doesn't hurt them from a cost perspective. And then, I think we win. Obviously, our ability to not be restricted with territories or verticals or, which solution we can bring to a customer opportunity, that benefits us. And so, you haven't asked the question yet, but what drew me to the channel was that. And when I was early on in my tech sales career, I knew a lot of friends that worked at Oracle, who were sitting in Oracle's former headquarter location, and the sales guys would be successful and maybe blow out their number, but typically you couldn't do that every single year. Right. Usually there would be a year where they would say, you made a lot of money the last couple of years, so something must be wrong with the way we've set up our comp program. And so we're going to change that, and you're going to have to sell 3 times as much as you did last year to try and, think about making the same amount of money. And some sales guys won't put up with that, and they'll leave, and, maybe it's the stock options, but a lot of times it's the comp program that they feel penalize their success. And so I always thought that was really short-sighted on the companies. Why would you come up with a comp policy that's going to drive out your most successful sales reps? Still don't understand that. Still never gotten a good answer to that question. But I saw that the agent model was the opposite. We get to eat what we kill. And that's amazing. So if, your success rests solely on you, you can't blame anyone else. And at the same time, if you are massively successful, there's nobody the next year to take away your compensation and penalize you for the success that you've built up. Mm-hmm.
What did the channel landscape look like when you got into it, Josh?
It was very early. So there were not a lot of suppliers that we had the ability to represent. So I always tell a funny story that audio conference calling was the only thing that kept me alive to fight and be able to bring in enough money to live and see another day in this business. I would have had to quit this job and go back to a salary position. And I didn't want to do that. I knew that, if you could get over the hump, you could potentially stay here forever. And that has proved to be true. I will retire as an independent agent. But I sold enough audio conference calling where, each person on a conference call would have to pay their own or, pay a per minute rate. So if there was 10 people on a call, it would be 10 cents per minute per person. So, that call would cost, $1.40 per minute, if there's 10 people on a call. So, and we had a nice margin built in for that product. And so I had enough audio conference calling customers that kept me alive to continue to stay in this business and keep fighting. So audio conferencing is no more. I don't think anybody dials into a 1-800-BRIDGE anymore, but it was a thing back in the day and it kept me alive.
That's great. So do you guys have a specific type of size of customer that you go after, or do you focus on, small to medium or enterprise, or what's that look like for you guys today?
Yeah, we work with a lot of small to medium sized customers, and I say, on average about 5,000 employees or less. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is most of those organizations probably have a smaller IT team where they just don't have the time and the resources to do what we do. And that's where our value comes in, is we really save them the time to understand what suppliers are out there, what solution is a good fit to help them with some of their challenges and technical debts that they have. Mm-hmm. So not to say we don't work with enterprise customers. We do have some enterprise customers as well, but a lot of times, they have their procurement team. They have specific team that, does their architecture and everything. So mm-hmm. They're less reliant on services that Josh and I have to offer.
And typically, they're the customers that are, if there is such a thing as a better experience with, the big carriers, where again, picking on them, sometimes that experience isn't always that great. But the bigger you are, the better, chances of that experience being a better experience. So it doesn't always resonate as well to when you call into a customer and say, hey, we can improve the experience that you're getting. With bigger customers, that may not be a pain point for them. So on the small side, I would say a customer that spends less than $5,000 a month on the type of technologies that we focus on, cumulative, right? So if their cumulative technology spend is less than $5,000, it's probably, not somebody that we're going to focus on and put a lot of energy into. Certainly if they need to buy a circuit and want to buy it from us, we'll do that. But, we're not going to try and focus on customers that are super small.
Mm-hmm. So coming into 2023, obviously there's still a lot of talk about, the global recession and stuff like that. So with your current customer base and, the typical sort of customer profile that you guys go after, have you noticed that there is less resources going into their IT teams? Because that's essentially what a lot of people are talking about is like, they're being forced to do more with less and that whole bit. But has that actually played out? Are you seeing that yourselves?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that. And I think the technology department are asked to look at their spend and not only, reducing headcount and doing more with less, but overall, just on technology spend, they're really eyeballing it with a fine comb now. And so I have customers coming to me to look at their spend and see where we can help reduce some of that spend. So, that's the beauty of what we do, Zach, is when times are good, technology it has a budget and they're spending, and we're able to bring solutions and help them strategize down the road. But during a downturn too, we bring a lot of value because we also can help them identify where we can help them reduce costs, right? And if they don't have a team to do certain projects or manage certain environments, we can bring certain suppliers into the fold to help them sustain and maintain their environment while they're downsizing and looking to cut spend.
I would say one of the ones that I continue to see is Microsoft Teams, where during the pandemic, Zoom obviously blew up and became a verb and all those things, but companies I don't think were necessarily worried about or thinking about or caring about potentially doubling up on different collaboration tools, right? So Slack's out there, Zoom's out there, Teams is out there, WebEx. So there's all these different ways that companies could collaborate with themselves, internally or externally with their customers. And this year, we're starting to see a lot of customers that are saying, hey, we don't want to double up Zoom and Teams. So, we're going to make a company decision to standardize on one or the other technology because we want to save money and drop one of the two. And Teams seems like they're doing pretty well. Most customers, have some spend with Microsoft already. It makes sense to, look deeper at technology. You're not going to displace Microsoft altogether. You could displace Zoom easier than you could probably get rid of all of your Microsoft out of your environment. So Teams, I think, is doing well as a result of this pullback. That's from my viewpoint. It seems like more people are asking about Microsoft Teams and doing Intune migrations and, more SharePoint, OneDrive, more Microsoft centered projects, and potentially reducing other collaboration spend.
Yeah. To Josh's point, and, similar to that, I have customers that say, hey, we're already paying for Microsoft E5 license. We can get Teams voice, we can get security, we can get endpoint protection. Why are we using all these other third-party providers when we're already paying with Microsoft? So there's definitely that consolidation effort and cost-cutting measures to look at that holistically.
So, yeah, Microsoft Teams is certainly interesting. Before I got to Evolve, the most of what I knew about Microsoft Teams was you can chat with people, you can share some files, you can do videos, but being here, it's crazy. Like there's so much more to Microsoft Teams than that. So like, do you still have, customers that only know Teams for that? And like, you kind of have to introduce them to the voice capabilities or, consolidating their, PBX, for example, and they can run voice through it, right? Is there still a lot of that going on? Like they don't really know like the capabilities of it?
I think yes is the answer. I think from my experience, most people know that Teams can become their voice platform, but they don't really know how to make it work. And so, they think, oh, Microsoft's just going to be my new phone company. It doesn't quite work that way. So there is a little bit of education in terms of how do you get Teams to displace, your old ShoreTel or call manager, and become your phone platform. And there's multiple different ways to skin that cat. And so I think that's part of the education is just helping them walk through the different options and what makes the most sense for them and which companies, might be good partners for them. Some of it too is interrelated to other applications, right? And so if you need your phone platform to interact and have dependencies on other applications, that's another area where sometimes they could use some outside consultants to help think through all those different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. So with something like Teams, lots of suppliers sell Microsoft Teams. So as a technology advisor, strategist company, how do you what's your thought process of landing on a supplier for for your customer?
I'll go first. Yeah, it's interesting because when someone says, they'll come to us and say, "Hey, we want to use Teams for voice." I think, ultimately what we like to do is get on a call and understand what they're trying to do, right? And what sets of features are must-haves that they need for whether they're for their typical phone system. Every customer is different. They have different type of routing and different requirements. So, really based on that, I think then we can decide, do they want to do direct routing, or do they want to use, go direct with Microsoft, or use another UCaaS provider that can come and integrate, because if Teams is pretty limited with the features that you can do with it. So if a customer has certain requirements that they need and are must-haves, then there are times where you can't go direct with Teams. So you would have to partner with a UCaaS provider that has those features, right? So
that's right.
Every customer is different. And so, that the initial assessment is really very critical to identifying which partner to put, which suppliers to put in front of them.
Yeah. So to just expand on what Man's saying, I think just a really deep discovery and asking a lot of questions that the customer may not have even thought should be a consideration when they're thinking through this, and just bringing in a lot of questions and things to think about. That's pretty much, I think, our, where we can provide value to a customer is really making sure all the considerations have been documented. And then based on that discovery, that helps lead us to where we think, choosing the right supplier would help them realize those objectives.
When you're going through this discovery process with a customer, do you typically start with more C-levels first, or do you kind of start with the IT leadership and work up from there? Or what have you found to be most successful?
It's always great if you've got the contacts at the top. But in my experience, I've always been challenged by getting a C-level person to, to take my input on something. Also, I think a lot of times the C-level folks just aren't involved at that level. And so, they're going to rely on their technical staff to run point. And so really, I think what I try and keep in the back of my mind when I'm presenting to the hands-on technical folks, I try to give them enough information so that I assume that a C-level person is going to eventually see the information that I'm giving to them. So I try to just make sure that I'm still talking to the C-level person, even if I'm not directly talking to them. But through the information I'm passing along to my technical contact, I try and keep a C-level person in mind with that information.
Yeah, from my experience, I think sometimes it does start with the C-level folks, because from someone that ran IT operation for over 25 years, I can tell you, nobody that runs IT wants to change out their phone system unless they have to, right? So usually it's either cost related or they're on a really legacy system, and a lot of that planning comes from the top. And as they look down, their 1, 2, 3 year plan on going through their technology debt and doing upgrades and replacements. So to Josh's point, it's always good to start from top, to have that conversation and trickle it down to the doers, the technology folks that are actually doing the replacements.
Today, there's a lot of talk around security and stuff like that. But when you're going through these discovery processes with potential clients, are there specific solutions that customers are asking about more often, or is there a lot of talk about security now? Or is it mostly security, or is it just a specific set of solutions that you hear about the most from your customers?
I would say it's across the board. Security is definitely something that I think every customer is addressing every year. I think there's certain certain parts of our total portfolio that don't get addressed every single year. For instance, if you only need one primary data center, and you move into one and you sign a long-term agreement, that's not something that you're going to have to address the following year, maybe even for a couple more years after that. Security, I think, is something that customers are tweaking, making changes to, adding things to every single year. So security, I think, is an ongoing evolution for customers. Collaboration, again, that may be something where, once you do set it up, it might not be something that you have to touch the next year, or at least not in a major way. Hopefully you can get a couple of years out of a decision and not have to readdress that across the board. And, it's the meeting customers where they are. It's really, if we're meeting a customer for the very first time, really, I kind of just start fishing, right? I start looking for what are things that you're working on, what are projects that are happening right now or that you're getting ready to plan to happen later this year. And really just try and ask a lot of open-ended questions to get them to open up to me about, different areas or projects they're working on. And if that fails and I'm just striking out all over the place, then I kind of just go back to, well, listen, I've been throwing out a lot of different things that asking a lot of questions, looking for an area that you might need some help with. But, I haven't found anything. Can you tell me? And just, is there an area that we could potentially address? Can you throw something my way? And let me take that back and see if there's some value I can bring to you. Just really just trying to find something, an area where they could use some resources. I mean, I like to tell customers, look, there's nothing that I can do for you that you probably couldn't do yourself if you had unlimited time and resources, right? So,
right.
If you really wanted to do my job, you could, right? It's not that I'm so much of an expert that you couldn't do what I do. However, you just don't have the time. And I would beg that the one area that I think we do have a leg up on a customer doing everything themselves, sourcing everything themselves, is that you can do all the research that you want, right? You can, the internet's obviously great for doing research before you buy something. You can do customer referral cards with a vendor that you're considering choosing, but nothing, in my opinion, beats the experience that we have from the agent side, because when we sell a deal, we're still talking to the customer, we're still talking to the vendor, we're still involved in the project and supporting that customer, that thing that we sold. And so we get to see the results of, all those pre-sale promises. How many of those proved out to be true, and how often did the vendor meet and exceed the expectations that were set pre-sale? And that's something a customer they just don't have the volume that we do and the experience with the suppliers and seeing how well they perform post-sale. So I definitely think that's an area a value that we can bring to a customer. Again, some customers really, I've talked to lots of IT guys that they love what they do. I have one guy that I call the circuit hugger because he loves talking to his network vendors. He works for a very big company. And so he has one very specific area that he focuses on, which is network and the circuits. And so he doesn't want me to shop for circuits for him because he likes doing that himself. So it's like, okay, well, there's a guy that wants to do what I do. But most IT generalists, as Man said, they have so much on their plate. There's so many different things they are responsible for, including managing upwards and working with their C-level team to help further the company's objectives and where does technology fit into that. So do they have time to vet out every single new thing that they need, right? Or could they use someone like us that can help shorten that process? So those are typically the customers where our value resonates to them.
Yeah, it's interesting when we talked about how, some companies are limiting resources or they're more cautious with their IT resources. I'm sure that you guys talk about how you can't grow as a company unless you have, IT working on things that will propel your company forward. So like, how do you So how do you have that conversation with them, when they are trying to limit resources, but in the back of your mind, you're like, if you take too much away, you're not going to have the ability to work on these strategic initiatives. I mean, how have you found success in having that conversation?
I would answer it as not the taking. So I don't know that customers are necessarily trying to just eliminate technology and not spend money on it. I would say another way that I try to help customers think about technology spend is it goes back to, the one I like to throw out there is, hey, Mr. Customer, do you guys employ your own janitorial staff to clean your offices at night when you guys go home? No, right? That's something, janitorial is outsourced. Why? Because it's not a core function of their business. So I like the analogy of, hey, Mr. Customer, your time would be better spent working with the leadership of your company. Again, helping them understand, how does technology fit into our company's objectives of how we're going to grow and more successfully serve our customers. And so should I be managing my own infrastructure, right? Should I be doing a hardware refresh every 3 to 5 years? Should I employ a staff to make sure that equipment stays alive and that the network is optimized and running well? Or would I be better spent outsourcing part of our infrastructure to someone that does that professionally, a company that, that is what they do, and have my time and my staff's time better spent, again, helping our leadership team, having a seat at the table with them to, again, help figure out, what are things we can do with with technology to help further the company's objectives. So that's my answer to that question, Zach. Man, what do you have a different take?
Yeah, I like to add to that. So there's definitely a transition in the role of IT, right? Throughout the years. When I first started, IT was keeping the lights on, and you hid in the secret room. Nobody knew where IT team was because there's no windows, and you just made sure everything was working. And then as the years progress, IT's really evolved, right? The IT team is their CIOs, there's VP of IT and directors are actually having a seat at the table, making strategic decisions on the company's roadmap for the next 2-3 years, right? And I've sat at those tables where I'm, having conversation with the CEO and the CFO on, here's where we want to be in 3 years, right? With our technology, and here's how we can help the business grow. So with that, I think, with the evolution of that, it's an easier conversation for us to have. To Josh's point, you should outsource certain aspects of your operations or eliminate having to hire a staff to manage this infrastructure, because that's not helping you in the long term to get you your roadmap and the strategy that you've developed. So it definitely makes the conversation easier for us to have with the C levels now, because of that transition that's gone through with the IT organization and how important they are to the businesses these days.
Mm-hmm. So when you do have the conversation about outsourcing, is there ever any hesitance, like especially with cloud, moving some of the infrastructure to the cloud? Is there hesitance from the CISOs, for example, or like the CTOs about, moving that sensitive data off-prem?
It's interesting. Depends on who you're talking to, like you said, right? If you're starting the conversation with the IT, the technical folks, there's definitely no hesitation, because I think nowadays they're comfortable moving infrastructure to the cloud or moving to a private cloud that's being managed by somebody else, because nobody wants to stay up 24/7 maintaining an infrastructure and not having enough resources to support that environment. So for that group, it's a good conversation, and they embrace the fact that they'll be able to hand it off to somebody else to work on. I think from a CISO perspective, absolutely, and that's the job, right? It is to make sure security is there and their environment is not being compromised, because the reputation of the business is going to be impacted. And if you do the calculations based on the company's revenue, that could be huge.
Yeah.
If they're compromised. So
yeah, I don't think there's many IT leaders that are concerned now that moving infrastructure to a cloud environment means that they're going to be, they're no longer needed, right? So I like to think about back in the day, everybody had an Exchange server, right? And so every few years you would have to upgrade to the new Microsoft Exchange environment, and that was a big deal. And then at some point, G Suite came along, and O365 came along, and very few organizations host their own mail servers anymore. And that led to the phone piece, right? So I think customers early on were having a hard time understanding that a phone could be in the cloud. Your phone platform could be in the cloud versus in your closet down the hall. Mm-hmm. And so to me, mail helped, that transition. So when I would bring up, well, hey, listen, you don't have your own mail server anymore. Why do you think you still need a PBX down the hall? Mm-hmm. And I think then that led into infrastructure in the cloud. So AWS is not new anymore. Right. Customers, maybe 5 years ago or longer, they couldn't imagine their infrastructure not being self-supported. But nowadays, that there's less customers now that are thinking that way. So now it's more, how do we secure that cloud? How do we, some of the same implications for supporting your infrastructure just because it's in a cloud environment are still there. So you still need IT leaders thinking about the best ways to support their environment, whether they're in a cloud or not. Mm-hmm. So I don't think IT leaders are thinking that moving to the cloud is going to put their job in jeopardy.
So since we're talking about cloud, I'm going to ask about DaaS next. So what has been your experience with having the conversation with customers around desktop as a service? Like, are they, since you're saying that they're not super weary about moving their infrastructure, I mean, what is that conversation like when you introduce VDI?
Man, you take that one.
Sure. I think for VDI is really case by case basis per customer, because I have a customer we're working on right now with Evolve, and we're in POC stage, and it's a perfect situation because they came to me with a challenge, and their challenge was their engineering team were using these engineering workstations on premise. Small IT staff, not a lot of folks that are supporting the system. So, a couple of challenges they have is, one, they have to replace the hardware because they're getting old, and engineering workstations are a lot more expensive than regular workstations, right? Mm-hmm. They got more resources, better graphics card to run their AutoCAD. And then the other challenge is the amount of data that they have, because these AutoCAD files are huge. And then the speed of pulling the data to the workstation to work on becomes challenging. And, their on-premise data center, and their equipment is pretty old. So there's latency involved. And so part of the solution is, hey, let's take a look at DaaS, right? And put it in Azure or somewhere else where, you get better technology, and then it's all within the same network ecosystem where, you're going to solve the latency issue. And third is you can scale a lot faster, mm-hmm. right? And the amount of storage you need can just scale up to, I wouldn't say unlimited, but I mean, you can go up to petabytes of data if you really wanted to. And lastly is the ability to support these workstations. Right now, you no longer need a staff just to walk over to somebody's workstation and figure out what's going on with their engineering system, because now when you have it in the cloud desktop as service, if there's an issue with your system, they have templates that you can easily just spin up and you're up and running again. So there's the scalability, there's ease of support, and then you solve the latency issue as well. So I think it's fantastic for that use case. It's not perfect or great for every single customer, right? But there's definitely use cases out there where DaaS is a great option for companies.
Yeah, I'm curious. Selfishly, I'm curious to know why it's not more. Why more advisors aren't talking about it? Because just like you said, like there are specific use cases, but I think if we talk about it's not just for remote workers, or it's not just for hybrid. There are use cases for on-prem employees as well. But I'm just curious to know why more advisors don't talk about it. To me, obviously, I work for Evolve IP, so it's the best thing ever. But practically speaking, I think it makes a ton of sense for a lot of organizations. So, what do you guys think? Why would it not be as popular as it could be right, today?
I mean, one of the things that I've always been challenged with is, for agents that have been around as long as I have, I think some of the customers that have known us for a really long time just don't know all of it. So all of the technology solutions that we have in the portfolio. So I know that I haven't always done a great job at keeping my customers educated on, the addressable space, right? The addressable technology space where we could bring, potentially a solution. So it might be just a situation where customers aren't bringing those opportunities to their advisors because they didn't know that was a product that they could address. But beyond that, I've only done a couple of VDI deals, and it really was something, where it was the customer bringing it to me. I think, I haven't been doing a good enough job at adding that into some of the questions when I'm looking for opportunities. Is VDI something that you've considered in your environment? And, do you know much about it? Do you think it would benefit you? But truthfully, I just don't have a lot of IT leaders that are considering VDI. I feel like most of my, Man's use case was a great one. Those machines are expensive, and, that small IT staff and so forth. But to me, when there's so many, most people's applications are cloud-based now. You don't need a heavy machine. It's not to say that doesn't still bring up a good use case for DaaS. I think there's a lot of great upsides to having a DaaS environment. But I don't know. I don't know that a lot of my customers are thinking about that as a replacement for just an inexpensive laptop.
I know we're running up on about an hour, but I had a question about just, are there any specific technologies or solutions that you guys are most excited about right now?
I think the one that we probably all hear about now is AI, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very interesting. I think, a lot of suppliers, I see them including or somehow integrating or trying to integrate AI into their products. So I'm excited. I think, it definitely is going to be able to help us leapfrog from here to here from a technology perspective and give the capabilities, really enhance the capability of our customers and what they can do, right, with their solutions. I think we're a long way, but there's definitely, it's very promising. If you just look at ChatGPT, what's able to do, and somebody like us can probably go in there and figure out how to, do a code for some automation and whereas we wouldn't be able to do without that. So I think it's amazing, and I'm looking forward to see, how our suppliers are able to integrate AI into their products.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, it's hard for me to even wrap my brain around AI. And it's just, it opens up such a, vast space. So I'm trying to even think about all the possibilities that come from AI is really too much for me at times to even try and comprehend. I think for me personally, I kind of grew up in my career selling network and voice. And so in data center, but never infrastructure as a service, right? So never selling, hey, instead of just selling you the space, power, and cooling for your infrastructure, I want you to consider putting your infrastructure into a managed private cloud or a hybrid cloud, or a public cloud, and supporting it over there. So for me, Man's experience was supporting infrastructure. Mine was selling the warehouse that you put your infrastructure in, but never really getting involved in talking about all the different compute resources. So that for me has been exciting, just to be able to talk about, somebody's compute, storage, and security environment for the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. I personally, those are the conversations that are really fun for me. And sometimes they go way over my head, and I'm getting lost when they're getting into the specifics of the computer environment. But still fun for me to be part of those conversations. So that's what's fun for me.
Excellent. All right, and lastly, I know you said, man, you were working on an opportunity with us, but what's it been like working with Evolve IP?
It's great. I work with Ryan, but I think the whole channel team is amazing. I met them out at Channel Partners, and that's why I love what I do now. Is one, I could help my customers, right, and agnostically, where we're really sitting on their side of the table and making sure we're doing what's right for them. And then, in addition to that, what's been amazing with my journey the last 5 years is meeting the channel partners, the team that we work with all suppliers. And, a lot of them I became friends with, just, we build a long-term relationship, and it's really a close-knit ecosystem. And, for us to just have fun doing it, it's amazing. I think the team over at Evolve has been very supportive. The POC has been going great. I've been on all the calls, and the team there is just very responsive. I see the emails responding right away, and then they're providing exactly the support that my customer needs. So far, it's been an amazing collaboration between us.
That's great. I love to hear it. All right. Well, what I like to end with is if you could go back to your, when you first got into the channel, first got into the technology space, what advice would you give to yourself with all the knowledge that you have now?
Go ahead, Josh.
I guess, just stay current on the technology landscape. And honestly, that it's kind of easy to do if you develop a good relationship with good customers that are smart and they trust you and you build good rapport. I have, 5 to 10 customers that when I'm curious about a new technology that, I'm hearing a lot of stuff about, and I'm curious to get, the customer's perspective on, is this something that's on their radar, and what are they thinking about? I love to be able to have these customers that will give me that time and just, yeah, Josh, I'll meet you for lunch, and I'll let you pick my brain on that subject or what have you. So, but staying current on the trends and the shifts in technology and what customers are doing, I'd say that's probably just, of paramount importance, because, when customers bring something that they're hearing about to you, and if you're not up to speed and you miss that opportunity, then, they're less likely to come back to you, for help with something that they're thinking about, if, coming to you isn't beneficial to them because you're not up to speed on what's happening out there.
Love it.
For me, I mean, in addition to what Josh talked about is obviously, staying up with technology because it's changing so rapidly. And, one other thing I'd like to add to that, Zach, is I don't have, as long as the tenure as Josh in the channel. I've been in for 5 years, but if I had to go back to give myself advice, it would be spend more time with people that's been in industry for a long time, and absorb the information and ask as many questions you can to learn how they became successful, because single one of them have their own ways, right? And they don't all do it the same way. And one thing I did learn throughout my journey is just be yourself. It's don't try to be someone you're not. And I think to be honest, I tried to be that person when I first started, and hey, I want to be this type of salesperson, and it just didn't work well for me. So, I sat down and said, hey, you know what? I'm just gonna be myself, and I think that just works out better in the long run.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you both so much. How can people find you, reach out to you? You on LinkedIn, I take it. I mean, how can people reach out to you?
LinkedIn, architectgroup.com. We're not hard to find.
There you go. Anything fun coming up with the business? Any events you're heading to or anything like that?
Gosh, we just wrapped up Vegas. That was really, I thought, beneficial.
Very.
I think there's some stuff later in the year. Hopefully we'll do well enough to do President's Clubs, which are really fun and nice reward for the work that we put in. So
there you go.
Yeah, there's always good stuff.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen. Thank you both so much. It's been fun. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
This was great.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on this episode of the Channel Champions podcast. You can find this and all our episodes on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite streaming platforms. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, guests, or topics, please reach out to us. We appreciate you coming along with us on this journey and hope you'll be back for the next episode. Until then, stay tuned, stay connected, and stay inspired.